Donald Trump has every single intention of being a king, of being the dictator he promised us he would be, of being some kind of an above the law ruler of the country. He has initiated in the Republican Party the strange ability to completely ignore the plain language of the Constitution of the United States, acting as though the Fifth Amendment only applies to maybe citizens, but not to all persons, even though it clearly states, nor shall any person be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person, says the Fifth Amendment. Donald Trump would have you believe that's not the case. Donald Trump would have the Republican Party believe that he can run for a third term, that the Constitution is negotiable. And now they're talking about suspending habeas corpus. So before I get to this clip of Stephen Miller, the little Nazi puke, Stephen Miller, talking about the consideration of suspending habeas corpus, we'll get on the ground with this from a layman's point of view so we don't have to dig deep through the law to know what it is. We'll just first go straight to the definition with Merriam-Webster. Any of several common law writs issued to bring a party before a court or judge. Or two, the right of a prisoner, and this is the one we're dealing with here, the right of a prisoner or detainee to obtain a writ of habeas corpus as a protection against illegal imprisonment. So listen, with Donald Trump and this administration arresting legal residents, undocumented immigrants, non-criminals, children with cancer, and exiling them to countries they've never stepped foot in, college students, judges in the state of Wisconsin, and now mayors in the city of Newark, this is what they want. They want to be able to arrest all of the below, and you and me, if we speak up. And they want it to be where Donald Trump doesn't have to go to a judge and prove any allegations against those prisoners, against those arrested, against those oppressed. That's what he wants. He don't want the Constitution to get in the way of his dictatorial machinations. The origins of the word, we're going to go this deep too. The literal meaning of habeas corpus is you should have the body. That is, the judge or court should and must have any person who is being detained brought forward so that the legality of that person's detention can be assessed. If you look deeply into the history, not even deeply, if you just scratch the surface of the history, habeas corpus has been around since the 1200s. Habeas corpus first originated back in 1215 through the 39th clause of the Magna Carta signed by King John, which provided, quote, no man shall be arrested or imprisoned except by the lawful judgment of his peers and by the law of the land. Habeas corpus had initially originated as an instrument. This is super important and instrumental in what we're talking about here. It is the linchpin for the justification and what Donald Trump wants to be. Habeas corpus had initially originated as an instrument in opposition to the king's, quote, divine right to incarcerate people. It was an instrument against the king's divine right to arrest people, without any justification to a court, with any checks or balances on a king's power. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly what's taking place. They want to do this so they don't see. Here's what's happened. And I'm going to play this clip from Stephen Miller. They've been rebuffed by judges. So what do? Well, we'll just take them out of the equation, suspend habeas corpus, which, by the way, has only been suspended 4 times in the history of this country. Once during the Civil War, once in only 11 South Carolina counties overrun by the KKK during Reconstruction, in 2 provinces of the Philippines, not even here in the United States, in 1905, when they were a colony or under our jurisdiction, and then in Hawaii after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. You notice this is all having to do with war. And that is the predication here. That's what they want you to believe is taking place. Stephen Miller talks about invasion. He talks about judicial activists, judges in the federal judiciary being at war with Donald Trump. These are carefully chosen words to justify what they want to do, which is to throw you in prison if you sound off at all, and they don't need to have a justification or proof to go before a judge. Watch Stephen Miller talk about this absolute insane power grab that none of us have ever witnessed in our lifetimes.
Hold on, there's a question back there first.
Pundit, I have two quick questions. First, President Trump has talked about potentially suspending habeas corpus to take care of the illegal immigration problem. When could we see that happen, do you think?
Well, the Constitution is clear, and that, of course, is the supreme law of the land, that the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at. Look, a lot of it depends on whether the courts do the right thing or not. At the end of the day, Congress passed a body of law known as the Immigration and Nationality Act, which stripped Article III courts, that's the judicial branch, of jurisdiction over immigration cases. So Congress actually passed, it's called jurisdiction stripping legislation. It passed a number of laws that say that the Article III courts aren't even allowed to be involved in immigration cases. Many of you probably don't know this. I'll give you a good example. Are you familiar with the term temporary protected status, or TPS, right? So by statute, the courts are stripped of jurisdiction from overruling a presidential determination or a secretarial determination on TPS when the Secretary of Homeland Security makes that determination. So when Secretary Noem terminated TPS for the illegals that Biden flew into the country, when courts stepped in, they were violating explicit language that Congress had enacted, saying they have no jurisdiction. So it's not just the courts aren't just at war with the executive branch, the courts are at war, these radical rogue judges, with the legislative branch as well too. So all of that will inform the choices the president ultimately makes, yes.
Mr. Miller.
Invasion, war talk. Again, from the pencil-necked moron who's never worn a uniform in service to his country at all. In fact, none of these pukes. They bang on about patriotism and service to country and selflessness and sacrifice, yet they're all physical weaklings and cowards, up to and including the President of the United States. A lot of this depends, Stephen Miller says, on whether the courts do the right thing or not. That means if they disagree with us, if they rule against us in service to the Constitution, in agreement with the Constitution, we'll just suspend habeas corpus and do it our way. We'll take them out of the equation. A lot of this depends on whether they agree with us. Do the right thing. This is dangerous. I mean, it cannot be overstated just how dangerous this is. There's been a lot of talk about him declaring martial law, and people called that a conspiracy theory. There's been talk previous about this happening, and people called it a conspiracy theory. While Donald Trump doesn't know anything about what he's doing as president, he has to have his nursemaid explain everything to him. He's effectively in office, but not really operating as president. He's not really pulling the levers and calling the shots. Anytime you question him about something, he's like, I don't know. Ask him. Ask these people. We're in a serious, serious spot. And it's going to take all of us to not cower, to not shrink, but to get bold, to get larger, to join one with another in outrageous protests and uprising against this government. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Comment below. You can call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I hope I gave you a little background on habeas corpus. I know it's a word we've heard since grade school. It's Latin really screws everything. Screws everything up. Please consider supporting this work. If you appreciate what I do, if I bring you value on a video by video basis through the research or the presentation, whatever, for $2 a month, you can help me produce this content. Click the join button below this video, become a channel member for that, $2 a month, or you can go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. You want to reach out to me on social media? I am at Dollemore everywhere, Facebook and TikTok, and not on Twitter actively anymore, but everywhere else at Dollemore, Blue Sky. Good time there. Love to see you. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.